Hi class, this is Unit 1, Part 2, Exploration and North Carolina. So today we will be talking about exploration as far as North Carolina is concerned, and mostly talking about Sir Walter Raleigh, for which our capital is named, and also the mysterious vanishing of the lost colony. Sir Walter Raleigh was from England, and at this point in time, in the 1500s, the Spaniards and the French were mainly taking over exploration in North America, where the United States now is. So Sir Walter Raleigh wanted a little bit of piece of that action for the English. So he wanted to settle land in the name of the Queen. So in 1578, under Queen Elizabeth, Walter Raleigh attempted his first voyage to what is now North Carolina. He would attempt 3 times settling different colonies. Instead of just exploring and leaving, he wanted to actually create a colony or a small little town of Englishmen there. So he would do that 3 times. And the reason that he wanted to do this was to grow trade with other nations at a benefit to England. So the other major powers in Europe right now, France and Spain, had been taking a little piece of the natural resources that North America had to offer and engaging in a trade pattern with Europe and Africa and Asia. So Sir Walter Raleigh wanted to discover a Northwest Passage so that England could grow rich by trade with other nations. He was the first of the English to settle the New World, so this is a big deal. Not only should we be learning about him because we're a part of North Carolina, but also this is a big event in our nation's history. He settled the first colony of what would be the United States on Roanoke Island. Before we hear about the lost colony, let's hear about the other colonies that he attempted to settle. The first colony was the Lane colony, and he explored and settled this with Thomas Harriot, who was a famous Renaissance man, meaning that he was good at a lot of different things, of which he was big into algebra, a poet, a scientist, and he experimented with the telescopes. Very important guy. John White, who was also an artist, who painted famous paintings of different Native American tribes, and also Ralph Lane, for whom the Lane colony is named. They took with them soldiers, so it was all men that were in the Lane colony. And while they were there, Harriet and White explored what is now the Outer Banks, while Lane and the soldiers built a base. At this time, there was a lot of conflict between the English and the Spanish. So Ralph Lane wanted to create some kind of protection for his colony from the Spaniards. Despite these efforts, the colony failed for a number of reasons. One, there were hurricanes that wiped out a lot of what they built, and there's also conflicts between the Spanish and the English, as well as some conflict with Native Americans, more specifically the Manteo tribe that was in that area. After this, the Lane colony attempt, Raleigh came back and established the White colony under John White. This time, though, he brought women and children. He thought this would show the natives that were there that they were trying to have a friendly approach, whereas bringing soldiers might kind of put up that guard and make them more alert to a situation that might become dangerous for them. So he was trying to soften their image with the women and children. The White colony ran into an issue where they ran short of supplies, so they sent John White to return to England in order to get supplies, thinking he wouldn't be gone long. They came up with a code system so that if they needed to move somewhere else due to hurricanes or any conflict that may arise, that they would put a cross on a tree or mark somewhere with some kind of safety code word to let him know that they were safe. Before White left, the first English baby was born in the New World. Her name was Virginia Dare. So she was part of this White colony, or what would become known as the Lost Colony. if you're driving to the Outer Banks or from it, you'll see a little sign that says home of the first English baby born in what is now the United States, and her name is there. So a very famous person just due to the timing in which she was born. John White got held up, and took him 3 years to return due to the Spanish Armada, which was a fleet of ships that were battling the English in the sea. So all of their ships were tied up dealing with that, so he was unable to bring back a ship for merely supplies purposes. And it also took him a little while to get those supplies that they needed. So 3 years later, he returns, and there's no one to be found. Everybody had left, and he wasn't sure what had happened. There are a couple of theories that are happened based off of some clues that were left. White immediately found 2 clues. Carved into one tree, there were the letter C-R-O, and a little bit further down on a post, there was the letter C-R-O-A-T-A-N, or Croatoan. Croatoan is the name of a village where the Manteo tribe that lived in that area lived. So this was near present-day Ocracoke. So to him, this meant a couple of different things. Maybe they went to go stay with that tribe, although there was no safety mark, like the cross that they had talked about. Or maybe something more violent had happened. But there was no real way for him to know. He did say that he did not find any sign of violence there, but there's no way to know what happened to these people. So here are some of the theories. These missing Roanoke settlers are known as the Lost Colony. Some questions were, did the Spanish raid again? Were they upset about what happened with the Lane colony and the conflict that was built there, so they decided to raid and kill or capture the people that were in the white colony? Did they leave to go live with the Croatoans? There are stories passed down by natives that there were Native Americans that had blue eyes and English names, and they built houses that looked like English architecture. So definitely seeing little bits of the English culture mixing in with the Native American culture, which might leave us to believe that they did come to live together. Or there's the idea that perhaps they were murdered by the Native Americans. When John Smith, who was part of the Jamestown colony, arrived in present-day Virginia, they sent Englishmen trying to look for the people of the lost colony. And he came up with the same theories that we're talking about right now, but also the one that maybe there was some violence that occurred between the 2 groups. That is all that we have today. Very short presentation on something very interesting that we will hear more about in class when we discuss these notes. Have a great night.